Hello to all you amazing people out there. Brother Dan here. I'm at the most spectacular place again because it's all about light. And this is another segment of the book of life. I lose track, but I think it's chapter 4. All I know is we've got words of life and words of light coming in. And we're going to share some of that with you as the backdrop. The sun's kind of shining in my face, so I'll pivot around just a bit so you can see God's glory. So exciting. And for this one, I'm going to have to really focus because with these waves going on here, they're crashing pretty close. But yeah, so this is the book of life. You can get the book of love, the book of light, and the book of heaven. They're all on Amazon right now in the links below. You're gonna love this. I love this. Here we go. The book of life. Words of life. Words of light in larger font. God said, "Let there be light" in Genesis 1:3, and there was light everywhere. Infinite light. And that same light of God is the light that you use to create the masterpiece of your life. Speak these words with power, with force, with God force. There is a different energy in God's light than in what you would experience as God's love or God's beauty or God's glory. In the utilization of light, it is energy, and using that energy to transform your life and to create the masterpiece as God has always intended. Let there be light in your life. Light is life. Words of light. I am God's light. I am God's infinite light, and it is eternally self-sustained. I am the light like a million, billion, trillion suns. I am God's light I am God's light that glorifies God in the highest. I am God's light in its purest perfection. I am God's light that transmutes perceived darkness. I am God's light in the hearts and minds of all of God's people. I am God's light in the leaders of every nation. I am God's light in every civilization. I am God's light at the core of Mother Earth. I am God's light at the core of my God self. I am God's light at the core of my being. I am God's light at the core of my knowing. I am God's light at the core of my knowing. I am God's light in my heart, mind, and soul. I am God's infinite light, always expanding in radiance and splendor. I am God's glorious light made manifest in my human form, human body. I am God's light in human form. I am God's magnificent light, ever expanding and eternally self-sustained. I am God's light, made manifest in the masterpiece of my life. I am God's light in all my relationships. I am God's light in all of my friendships. I am God's light as experienced when a loving husband unifies with their loving wife. I am God's light, expanding in every direction. I am God's light, glorifying the heavens and the earth. I am God's light, that creates only perfection. I am God's infinite and glorious light in everything that I do and in everywhere that I go. I am God's light in every action that I take, in every action that I make, in every breath I take. I am God's light in all of my perspectives. I am God's light in all of my perceptions. I am God's light saturating my subconscious programming. I am God's light in all of my thoughts, beliefs, and behaviors. Thoughts, beliefs, behaviors, and routines. I am God's light as I smile at the world I experience every day. I am God's light experience as the people of one nation unify their light with the people of all other nations and civilizations. I am God's light, creating heaven on earth for the collective. I am God's light, creating heaven in my heart, mind, and soul. I am God's light, as experienced in a glorious sunset. I am God's everlasting light. In all corporations and organizations, I am God's eternal light. In every particle of creation and all spaces between each particle of creation, and in the million, billion, trillion segments of each particle of creation. All of it is God's light. Infinite light beyond measure. Eternal light. Light which has no ending. I am God's infinite, eternal light. In all aspects of my divinity, I am God's infinite, eternal light. In all aspects of the world that I live in, I am God's infinite light. In all aspects of myself, my God self, my higher self, my true self, my real self, my blessed self, my holy self, my one self, unified with the creator of all that is, and my unified self, unifying all aspects of myself, all aspects of the world I live in, and all aspects of my physical being, fully unified with God, the Father, creator of the heavens and the earth, and of all of creation, and all civilizations. Let there be light, as God has always intended. Let there be light in my heart, mind, and soul. Let there be light which has no ending. Let there be God's infinite light as the permanent construct of my being. Let there be light. Let there be God's infinite light. Let there be God's glorious light. And let there be light creating heaven on earth for me, for all of God's people, and for all nations and civilizations. Let there be light! Exclamation point. Let there be light! All caps! Exclamation point. Let there be light! All caps! 3 exclamation points. Much larger font. Jesus did it again. Jesus did it again. All right. That was glorious. Let there be light. I love you. God bless you. Check out all the videos on this YouTube channel. I channeled a bunch of the messages from these books. There's also personal growth messages, life hacks, lots of ways that you can shift your perspective and make your life from your perspective in your being to experience life in its full amplitude and magnitude of its glory. So subscribe, turn on notifications, get all the books, get the coaching programs. Just be blessed, and I'll see you in the next video.